So what would happen if a British trawler was sailing close to Soviet territorial waters, with naval personnel on board and with equipment on board?
Anything. They could be even shot, you see, simply sunk, and this is all, because it is a violation of our waters, you know. But I think at that time, our military in 71, 74, were very much afraid of the political consequences. Therefore, I think that they would think first before shooting and sinking the ship. But it could be arrested, stopped, searched, and a spy scandal could be made out of it.
And there were narrow escapes, as when the Arctic galliard set off again for the seas off Murmansk, specially equipped and carrying a team of 4 intelligence operatives, including Commander Brooks. Because one day, not far from Murmansk, her trawl became stuck fast undersea, and just as they tried to free her, a large Russian warship approached. One of the crew members on that trip, Sidney Withers, remembers it well.
All the men was lined round it, and the captain, I don't know, just shouted in plain English, "Can we assist you, Captain, off the fastening?" And we couldn't get off it. For some bloody reason we couldn't. And anyway, we waited while the tide took us off it, you know, a different direction. But in between that, the operators and the commander and them, they was running about, frightened to death. There was going down the engine room, burning all the papers. And I think they had some equipment where they put cameras and all like that in to sink if it come to it, you know, where it took over the side. And one says, "What will happen to you? Hold the torch here and send you, you know." So I says to him, "Well, I'll tell you one, you won't have to torture me." Because I said, you, and you, I said, are the spies, I'll tell them.
So where does all that stand beside the claims of the government at the time, outlined by Bill Rogers, then Defence Minister, in a letter to a local MP?
The British trawler fleet is not involved in any way in intelligence gathering. This applies as much to equipment as to personnel.
We went back to Bill Rogers, now Lord Rogers, and presented him with our evidence.
Looking at that letter and knowing the way I behaved as a minister, I think simply I was wrongly informed. I was seriously misled on the evidence. Now, I would have to go and look at the papers to be absolutely certain, but it certainly came as a shock to me to discover the fleet had been involved in systematic intelligence gathering, and I would regard this as a very serious shortcoming if what appears to have happened had happened. And I was knowingly misled to the extent that I said that the trawler fleet were not engaged in intelligence gathering. I mean, that is the one point which is palpably, on the evidence, not true. I think it's always very serious if officials mislead ministers. It's important that the intelligence services should be under political control, under the control of ministers. But if I was misled, I would take a very, very serious view indeed.
Ironically, the local MP to whom Rogers wrote that letter is now the Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott. He declined to be interviewed for this programme, but said the government would welcome and consider any new evidence that the programme can provide. The Ministry of Defence, in a statement to dispatches, denied that the Gaul had been involved in spying. They did admit that
a very limited number of vessels assisted the government in specific intelligence gathering.
But when asked where this left Lord Rogers' original claim that the trawler fleet was not involved in intelligence gathering, they said,
in context in 1974, it was a correct statement. We stand by it.
We've been searching with the side-scan sonar now for 6 hours, and still we've found nothing which might be the wreck of the Gaul. Meanwhile, the sea is rising, and that's a problem. If we don't find a wreck soon, then the swell could make it impossible to use the remotely operated dive vehicle which carries our cameras. But then, at last, there's a breakthrough.
Oh, I think it's coming up, something like that.
We have something coming up.
Yes, I think so.
On the echo center?
Yeah. It's a small echo.
So could this be a wreck? We head below to the control room where we can look at the side-scan sonar printout.
So what have we got here? What's happening?
Well, it's obviously something that's raised off the seabed, which is throwing quite a strong shadow. We're getting a ghost of it on the port side. So we've more or less had the towfish pass more or less over it.
This is very good news, although for Carol Radford it brings mixed feelings.
If we find the Gaul, what effect will it have?
I think it'd be sad, but it will put a lot of people's minds at rest. It would sort of make you feel better in the end, I think. You know, the actual finding and it all coming about again would be awful, but it would help. It would help a lot.
But to find out if this is indeed the Gaul, we're going to have to anchor and send down a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV. But we must move fast. The swell is continuing to rise, and if the seas get any higher, they could snap the ROV's umbilical cable, through which we control its movements and its cameras.